Welcome, Pathfinders. I'm Rick.
And I'm Heather, and this is Winston.
And we're here again with another one of our field reports to go over a number of other new books that have come out in the past few weeks. Generally talk about things Pathfinder and all things Pathfinder related. So we're going to start talking about the new Player's Companion, which I believe you've read over.
Yes, Legacy of the First World. This book has to do a lot with Fae and how they interact with Golarion. There's actually a few sections on Fae areas of Golarion, like
pretty much the entirety of the River Kingdoms.
They also talk about the Eldest, which are the Fae gods, and gods.
Yeah.
Well, there are options for your character. You can worship the Eldest. The first section of the book actually has Fae racial traits for all of the core races. So if you want to be an orc, a half-orc that has Fae ancestry, there's a trait for that. They also have several page spreads on gnomes and Gathlanes, since they are two of the major Fae-related races.
Gathlanes were featured in one of the bestiaries, as well as a fair amount of information given to them in the Advanced Race Guide. They're kind of about gnome size.
They look pretty cool. They got wings.
Gnome size Fae with wings. They come from the first world and cause all sorts of problems in the material plane.
There also is options for playing one of the bleached gnomes now. So if you want to play a gnome that's gone through the bleaching, they actually have rules for that.
There's actually a really interesting concept that's been part of the Golarion setting since way back when they first were 3.5 and they put out the original Guide to the Inner Sea. Honestly, they haven't really touched on it a great deal. There was a bleached gnome feature in Realm of the Fell Knight Queen, and really outside of that, I don't remember a whole lot of bleached gnomes scattered about through the setting. It's always been an interesting idea and kind of explains why they're such tricksters and generally terrible people to each other.
Well, and playing a bleached gnome would be interesting in some of the quote-unquote darker campaigns, like
right.
Carrion Crown, or...
Which is kind of a pun, because they're bleached.
Or
darker.
Strange Aeons, or maybe even, for Hell's Vengeance, playing a gnome that's evil now because it's undergone the bleaching, maybe? And they also have a bunch of new archetypes and feats, and instead of just, they've broken it up by the Eldest. So each Eldest has a section about what it's like to follow them, and then the archetypes and feats that relate to that Eldest are in that section. There's several new Oracle mysteries and curses. There's Cavalier and Alchemist archetypes in there.
Yeah, I do remember seeing that there was a new Oracle curse where effectively you were just constantly bothered by
the Fae.
Yeah,
little Fae bother you all the time.
Yeah, so basically they tie your shoelaces in the morning and, trip you up and, steal your clothes while you're taking a shower or whatever it is. I understand that's a lot like the haunting, the haunted Oracle curse.
But it's Fae instead of spirits.
Yeah, I think there's some other different mechanics too as well.
So it's a good book, especially if you're interested in the Fae, and there is that big spread on gnomes. So if you're a gnome fan, there's a good new 2 or 3 pages.
Favorite archetype or anything you want to highlight?
There's a chronomancer wizard where you can manipulate time, and that was kind of interesting. And there's a twin summoner archetype where your summon is like a double of you instead of one of the creatures.
Like a doppelganger kind of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you wanted to do craziness, apparently with being a Fae and having a doppelganger that runs around and does stuff.
To help you.
I guess to help you. Helping you. If any of you are looking towards doing a Fae-based character, it's really good for something along the lines of Kingmaker. Kingmaker would be a great opportunity to look into something like that. If you're going to go into a darker direction with the Fae, honestly, Reign of Winter would probably be a very good location to include something with the Fae, considering that it has a large amount of Russian folklore towards it, and they draw a lot of that back in with this. Other than that, probably a good opportunity to have a little splash of Fae pretty much in anything you do. So, generally liked it?
Yeah, I thought it was a good book. I've always liked the Fae. I mean, ever since, way back in 3.5 before I've been Pathfinder, I've always thought the Fae were interesting.
So, we have been both going through the Adventurer's Guide, picking up our individual copies and looking at everything.
I got my copy at PaizoCon.
Yeah, I did not. Because again, I was not at PaizoCon. But The Adventurer's Guide cover, as always, beautiful. Includes both a Hell Knight, a Red Mantis, and a Grey Maiden to give you an idea of what you're doing with what you're going to run into with this book. It feels a little bit like Monsters Codex, which basically took a whole lot of the iconic monsters, things like ogres, a number of different giants, goblins, orcs, and gave them like a large page spread with multiple different options for using them. Except for this one is organizations. I know that there's a little bit of a hullabaloo about it because for the longest time, Paizo has made a concentrated effort to keep their Pathfinder role-playing line and their Pathfinder setting information separate. Which is why you would occasionally see things like, okay, well the Pathfinder Chronicler is in the core rulebook. And the core rulebook has the deities from the campaign setting. But everything else, as far as most of the hardback books, were kept campaign neutral, including, more notably recently, a number of the books pertaining towards like the Villain Codex, which a lot of people were expecting to have things like the Aspis Consortium and other villainous organizations that were scattered about Galarian, but instead it was much more along the lines of bandits or cults or, secret society. The secret society was amazing, but secret societies. But no, the Adventurer's Guide covers a large number of different organizations, 18 of them in total, that range across Galarian, and pretty much take these Galarian institutions and now make them effectively open to, the world. Going over all 18 of them would take a fair amount of time. There are a few of the more generic ones that most people are going to state, and I don't mean generic in necessarily a bad way, but the Pathfinder Society, which pretty much everyone, if you have found this video, you probably know at the very least what the Pathfinder Society is. But they do explore a little bit more into the Pathfinder Society. They update a number of things that actually come from older Pathfinder supplements, including like the Lore Warden and things like that, to make them a little bit more up to date. Which I don't know if that one's going to necessarily be a favorite of people now, as it was hugely popular before.
Each of the sections in the Adventurer Guide over each faction is broken down into sections. There's a bunch of lore about the organization. They give you a little blurb that says the alignment, their philosophies. There's also a section about 3 important members in the organization, so you have kind of an idea about what the high-ranking members are like. And then they have the prestige classes. And in the case of like the Red Mantis Assassin was published in the Inner Sea Guide, I think.
Yeah.
And it's republished here, but they also have another new Red Mantis prestige class. So it's some old information that's been republished into one place. So we have a bunch of all the Red Mantis information in one spot. There's also new stuff. There's new archetypes that have to do with the organization. There's new feats. There's new spells. There's new specific organization gear. So they do that for all the organizations.
In short, it does provide a fair amount of information basically about each of the organizations, especially again with the Red Mantis and the Hell Knights, as you'd explained there. It has a lot of information about organizations that have gotten mentioned before and are further fleshed out here, and does a great opportunity of collecting things and putting them together. Kind of like the Gods books did pertaining towards all of the information on the Gods. As most of you, or many of you probably know, that the Gods information was scattered across all of the adventure paths, each one containing 2 Gods per adventure path, and then they compiled them all together in one place. Updated all the information. This is kind of similar to that. The Hell Knights have had a lot of information scattered about them all over the place, mostly starting in Council of Thieves. The Red Mantis Assassins had a fair amount of information given to them starting in the World Guide, which actually had a fair amount of information.
And there's more information on them in the Serpent Skull Adventure Path.
Serpent Skull touches on the Red Mantis as well. In addition to that, they also touch on a number of other organizations that have gotten a fair amount of mentions previously, including the Aspis Consortium, which many people will know are one of the largest antagonists to the Pathfinder Society. The Bellflower Network, which is really big in Chiliax and basically dedicated around a number of halflings attempting to break free of the slavery that is prolific in Chiliax and free their own companions. Eagle Knights probably have one of the largest sections, mostly because I believe that they have 4 prestige classes in this book.
Oh, wow.
Each one getting a 2-page spread, and considering how widely popular the Eagle Knights are, that makes a fair amount of sense. But beyond that, it also touches on a lot of groups that don't get as much attention.
Like they've gone back and redone the Lantern Bearers, which I think the prestige class was originally in Elves of Galarian.
They received a mention in Elves of Galarian, and they had a lot more of a focus for the Lantern Bearers in Second Darkness.
But so they republished that prestige class, and then they have updated the organization concerning after the events of Second Darkness. So the prestige class is in there. The Lantern Bearers are a group of elves that, of course, try to defeat the evil and the darkness. They have a lot to do with the events of Second Darkness, like you said, and then also they help the fight against Tanglebriar.
See, and I had noticed this as a kind of a curious point pertaining towards this book. Kind of touches on the campaign setting more than you would expect.
Yeah, like, it was kind of weird with the Grey Maidens, because you would think with the focus of the Grey Maidens in
they were initially
Curse,
introduced in Curse of the Crimson
that
Throne.
it would be about the organization while they were active during Curse, and not to do any spoilers, but this is after the events of Curse of the Crimson Throne. It talks about what the Grey Maidens are up to now.
And so, unlike almost any other book, there's always been a standard with Paizo to basically assume that none of the adventure paths have taken place.
Or the adventure paths that you haven't done yet haven't taken place in your version of Galarian.
Whereas this one basically assumes that all of these events have already transpired.
Which I actually kind of like. Because it's always kind of weird to say, oh, all of this stuff happened in Corvosa, but we haven't played Curse, and we're playing an adventure path that comes after it, so what's going on in Corvosa? I mean, it's always been weird to me. It feels like that there is a timeline and these events have happened.
Yes, they do that with the Lantern Bearers, which come from Second Darkness, the third adventure path. Curse of the Crimson Throne, which involves the Grey Maidens, which is the second adventure path.
There's
an entire section on the Council of Thieves, which come from the Council of Thieves adventure path.
Is that the fourth or the fourth?
That would be the fifth.
Fifth.
The fifth adventure path. And so they do a lot to kind of advance the world. There are a number of things on other organizations that many people like but haven't gotten as much focus as before. So for instance, actually talking of the adventure paths, the Silver Ravens, which have a large role to play in the Hell's Rebels adventure path, are also featured in this, although they were an organization that has existed before then, and I myself have not read through or played Hell's Rebels, therefore I can't tell you whether or not it's progressing it past the events in Hell's Rebels, or if it's assuming that the events of Hell's Rebels haven't taken place yet. Probably one of my favorite sections was the Eldori Sword Lords. I've always loved the concept of them. They introduce an entire, they have their own dueling schools, they have their own thing. They all take place in Brevoy, which is kind of an analog for the Seven Kingdoms in Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire. And so if you're a big fan of that, I've always kind of loved that. They come from the free city of Rostov, and they get a lot of information in this, as well as archetypes that actually, a fighter archetype, as well as, I believe, a swashbuckler archetype, both of which fit really well for a duelist.
Yeah.
They also have one of the most amazing magical items that they've included in here, which is a sword that, if the sword is ever broken, explodes like a fireball. Not necessarily great for you, but it is kind of a nice,
your nearby
middle
companions
finger
that don't have evasion.
It is a nice middle finger, if you need to. It actually kind of gave me flashbacks to 3.5 and the Staff of the Archmage, where you just would snap and then nuke yourself. Beyond that, I know the Council of Thieves introduces some cool new archetypes for that organization. There'd be a little bit more
prestige class, which I thought was weird.
There would be a little bit more of a focus for villains, especially if you're playing anything in West Crown, which is where the Council of Thieves are based out of. The Eagle Knights, of course, give you a number of different options. The Grey Maidens have a number of new archetypes, which are really cool, including a Cavalier archetype. Speaking of Cavalier, they do have a new order for the Aspis Consortium, which is kind of fun. The Bellflower Network introduces a Halfling Vigilante archetype, which makes a whole lot of sense. Mild-mannered halfling servant by day, vigilante freedom fighter by night. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, all of them are actually very good. I was super impressed with this book.
Yeah, I really, really liked it. I got super excited when I noticed that there had, the Lantern Bearers. I'm a big elf fan. And then, of course, the Red Mantis and the Hell Knights, because I do like my evil organizations.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to see them, like I said, update the setting a bit and say, hey, we assume your character is one and the world hasn't ended, so here's what's going on.
So honestly, if you love both the flavor of the setting as well as the mechanics of the setting, this book has pretty much everything you would want. I honestly consider it one of the best books that I've seen.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ones that they've put out recently, to be honest.
And pretty much any place that you play an adventure path, or even if you're playing Society, you'll eventually get to run into something akin to this. So yeah, great.
Yeah.
Generally, pretty awesome.
I really like both of these books. I think, sometimes the player companions for me are kind of hit or miss, but I really, really like this Fae one, so I'm very happy with it.
So keep up the good work, Paizo. We very much enjoyed those. So on to other general news. First thing I was going to mention is we actually brought up to you in our last video where we talked to you about the Pathfinder Kingmaker game.
It's
and
been
the Kickstarter.
funded.
She stole my thunder, but yes, it has been funded now. So there's that. So it's going to be official. I mean, the game was already going to come out regardless. I've donated my part. I'm not going to speak for the rest of my players because I don't really know what they've done, but I've done my part.
I'm an
so
unemployed college
and Jordan's
student.
done his part. Beyond that, real big news that has come out of Pathfinder is the Starfinder pre-orders are now open. You can go on to paizo.com
Jordan's
and
so
you
happy.
can do all of your Starfinder pre-orders, get all of your stuff. You could already go on there and pre-order your core rulebook. But now there's actually a number of other things. You can sign up for the Adventure Path, which is going to start with Dead Suns. And so it's going to be a 6-part adventure. Unlike the adventure paths that come out for Pathfinder, the Starfinder adventure paths are going to be coming out on a bi-monthly basis. So every 2 months you'll get a new one adventure path per year. Honestly, this probably will work a little bit better because there's a small part of me that, you know, feels as much as I love every adventure path that comes out and every adventure path book that I get, and I'm super thrilled by all of them, I'm never going to catch up.
We just have to figure out a plan to become independently wealthy, and then we just play Pathfinder all day, every day.
Never going to catch up. So,
I'm more optimistic than he is.
with Starfinder though, at that point you basically have about 8 weeks, sometimes 9, depending on the month, to play through to try to actually stay up to date with the adventure paths as they come out. And I find that usually an adventure path book takes anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks to do.
And depending on which book it is. I mean, it seems like the dungeon crawl book always takes longer than the other ones. But
So yes, assuming it's more combat intensive.
Mm-hmm.
But assuming that the adventure path books for Starfinder work much the same, that means that if you start when it drops, you could potentially stay permanently caught up with the Starfinder adventure path. It has its pluses and negatives. The advantage to it is fewer spoilers. You'll know everything that, you know, you're going to know pertaining towards each one of the adventure paths as you go into it, and you don't have to worry about any of it being spoiled for you. Downsides, of course, being sound sets, even though Sirenscape is going to be putting out a sound set for Starfinder. If they were going to be doing sound sets specifically for each adventure path, probably not going to come out until you're like halfway through the adventure path. Secondly, the pawn sets, as they usually don't have all of the art a year in advance, you're not going to get the pawn sets before the entirety of the adventure path is out. So there is that. You're also going to be able to get your Starfinder Society modules via pre-order, which means that pretty much those are going to drop day up. They're doing 3 of them the first month, and they're doing 1 each month after that, which means that at the very least, if you want, you can stay caught up that way. If you're Starfinder Society fans, which I'm going to guess means that you're just fans of the concept of it, as it does not exist right now. But if you are fans of the concept of Starfinder Society, all of the adventure paths are also supposed to be society sanctioned, which means that from the get-go, you can play your character in the adventure path, and then periodically run off and do your own little Starfinder Society side quests, and then come back and keep doing the adventure path. Like you have like little deviations where you go flying off into space, and kind of like standard Star Trek fare where it's like, oh, we're flying to the planet of the Sug people to do a diplomatic mission. Oh wait, distress call. It didn't work out so well for the Nostromos if we're jumping over to Alien. But that notwithstanding, I'm sure the distress call is perfectly
hey, the cat
innocent.
survived.
The cat did survive.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
For Alien, which has been out since, what, the 70s?
Yes.
It's a 30-year-old movie.
Yes. The cat survives though, so yeah.
Oh my god, what is the cat's name?
Jonesy.
Jonesy.
I know it's Starfinder, yeah. If you like Starfinder Society, you should be able to get all of the information that you need, again, in your pre-orders there. In addition to that, there are going to be having Starfinder map packs and maps that are going to be available that you can go in. You can either download those if you're using some sort of digital projector, if you know you're in the future space age with all of your gaming technology. Barring that, you can of course get print editions and have cool, you know, Starfinder maps, which I believe is also going to include like a spacescape for doing starship battles.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So have a little fold-out map that has a bunch of stars and everything
Space
else
battles
on them.
are on a hex grid, aren't they?
Yes.
Or is everything on a hex grid for Starfinder?
Just the space battles are going to be on a hex grid. In addition, you are going to be able to get your accessories, which is going to include the GM screen. combat pad specifically for Starfinder. And so you don't have to just use the standard combat pad that either... I actually use the old school Game Mastery one, I really like it, but the newer combat pads that they put out and everything that's after the Game Mastery line, this Pathfinder combat pads are really good. Starfinder combat pad also sounds like it's going to be really good, as well as the pawns as they come out, and there is going to be a pawn set that they're putting out for the core rule set. So even if they don't necessarily have a pawn set already out for the bestiary once it drops or out for the adventure paths, they do have a core collection. So if you like Pathfinder pawns, I've always been a big fan of Pathfinder pawns, they'll have Starfinder pawns. In addition to that, on the subject of space combat, they are going to be doing pre-painted miniatures for this. Interestingly, WizKid has always done the miniatures for the Pathfinder lines, any of the Pathfinder Battle series or anything like that. Actually, they're going with Ninja Division for this. If that name sounds familiar to any of you, it's probably because you played Super Dungeon Explorer. Ninja Division is really good at what they basically started off of the site Cool Mini or Not, and then eventually just did their own entire thing. They're really known for the chibi style miniatures, so giant heads and tiny little bodies. I don't think that they're doing that for Starfinder, although it would really amuse me. Or if you just run into a race of people that naturally look like that.
Goblins, perhaps?
Basically goblins, yeah. Goblins or anything along those lines. And so Ninja Division is really good. They're going to be making both characters as well as ships. And so you'll actually have little miniatures for your ships to move around the battlefield. From what I understand, they're only doing pre-painted stuff. And so if you like to paint things on your own, you may just have to go to another product line or anything along those lines. Reaper does have its own like little technological collection.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, and I don't know if Reaper's going to be doing some plastic or some actual metal miniatures like they do for the Pathfinder line.
You'd think eventually that they would.
Probably they're going to jump on board with that, much as I'm expecting to eventually see dice sets come out for Starfinder, although I haven't seen any announcements for them yet.
You'd think that they would do one for each adventure path for Starfinder, just like they do for the normal Pathfinder adventure paths.
No, they need to catch up with the Pathfinder adventure paths before I'm too concerned with that.
They're only 2 behind now.
Although, to be fair, they have an entire year to make this dice set, unlike with Pathfinder.
They're only 2 behind now. They just need, Strange Aeons and I cannot remember the name of the one that's currently going on.
Iron Fang Invasion.
There you go.
So yeah, that will bring us just to
random shenanigans?
So as we did previously, and we'll possibly be continuing to do, depending on feedback and whether or not you guys like this, we are more than happy to talk about our own experiences with Pathfinder, give you an idea of what's been going on in our games, outside of the Pathfinder Society stuff that you can go and watch at any time you want. So if you're interested in watching us play Pathfinder Society, we are generally funny people.
And our normal games, the Adventure Path games, are just as shenanigan-filled as what you see on film. Sometimes probably worse, because we have more time to go off on tangents.
Yeah. Not that we aren't, generally speaking, professionals when it comes to this.
Are we? I guess.
I only let them go so far. Iron fist and a velvet glove. That's the way to do game mastering.
Anyway, so as we were talking about last time, we've been playing through Curse of the Crimson Throne, and
Yes.
we are in Scarwall. Curse you, Greg Vaughn. I feel like that just needs to be trademarked every time we talk about Curse lately.
I'm actually a big fan of Greg Vaughn. I'd actually had an opportunity to play through this adventure path before I'd had a chance to run this adventure path. And so I've been very...
He played the original version, and now he's playing the special hardcover version, or storytelling the special hardcover version.
Yes.
So he gets to see all the changes and go, oh, that wasn't there before, and we're like, yay! But one of the first things that happened to us when we were in Scarwall is we encountered a Death Knight.
Great night.
Grave Knight, Death Knight, whichever. And we did not roll high enough on our knowledge religion checks to know what we had to do to stop him from respawning. We just knew he was going to respawn. We have a bag of holding, like all good adventuring parties do, and so we just threw all of his crap in this bag of holding. And we go on our merry way through the horrible, horrible halls of Scarwall.
Those of you who have been playing this for a while or are generally familiar with the Grave Knight may be aware that Grave Knights respawn from their armor.
We did not know that. When the armor went in the bag of holding, because it's like plus 1 or 2 adamantine full plate. So yeah, we'll sell that off for a good chunk of change when we get back to Corvosa.
And so they toss his armor into the bag of holding. He returns back from the grave in the bag of holding.
Our rogue, our bard, and our ranger are up in this little 10-foot by 10-foot room.
It's a tiny little chamber.
And there was a corpse up there, and it had some loot on it. So Jordan's character, our bard, opens the bag of holding to throw the loot in the bag of holding.
And like any good undead that has respawned inside of a bag of holding, intelligent undead, he has taken the opportunity to arm himself with the gear inside of the bag of holding.
He had a new cloak and like 2 rings and an amulet, I think.
Stand at the entrance to the bag of holding and indefinitely ready in action because you're undead and there's nothing stopping you from doing that. And so the bard gets to open the bag of holding to be impelled by a great sword.
Yeah. Wrestling.
The Grave Knight clambers his way out of the bag.
Bedecked in all of his old gear and some new gear.
Says hello and then starts wading into the party.
So there's screaming and death, and my paladin's stuck at the bottom of this ladder because there's no room for her to climb up.
So the party does successfully manage to defeat the Grave Knight again.
We leveled up since then, and the shaman had put a rank in knowledge religion, so this time he rolled high enough to know that we had to destroy his armor.
Yes. Apparently the Grave Knight climbing out of the bag of holding jogged his memory. On, I guess, a
Oh yeah, that thing. I remember now.
And so then subsequently the party basically took the armor and then threw it over the wall and hoped for the best. Because he's inevitably, there's nothing they can do to really stop him at this moment.
We don't have anything powerful enough to completely destroy the armor, which is what would stop him from returning.
We love the Grave Knight.
Yeah.
And so, other than discussions on how they could possibly take leadership and get a Grave Knight as a
we did have a big conversation about how can we get this guy on our side.
And how can you justify that to
Rick
Paladin?
has made him very snarky and sarcastic, so he's actually pretty funny.
So regardless, though, they have successfully temporarily dealt with the Grave Knight.
Because he's just gonna climb up the frickin' wall and probably try to kill us again. I can see that coming.
Yeah, does the long march around and then comes back inside. I'm sure we'll figure out something.
But yeah, that was the last thing we were expecting, I think, was to open our bag of holding and get stabbed in the face.
Yeah, in a tiny room. At least it wasn't at the end of the night or something and you're opening the bag of holding to get out trail rations or whatever and get stabbed in the face while everyone's got their nightcaps on.
So yes, that was hilarious and probably one of the weirdest things that's happened in a while.
And we haven't had an opportunity to keep going with our other games yet, but we'll update you guys as we do so. Party's steadily making their way through Book 5 of Curse, getting ready to return. It never ends. Getting ready to make their return back to Corvosa and continue the...
Save the day!
Save the day. Continue the battle. I hope all of you have found all this information generally entertaining, or maybe we've even swayed your decision to purchase a book or not. In this case, yes, definitely purchase
that's a great
The
book.
Adventurer's Guide, and if you have any desire to do anything Fae related, feel free to go ahead and pick up Legacy of the First World. A solid book.
Yep.
Beyond that, if you like any of our stuff, feel free to like and subscribe. There's also a little notification bell that you can push. So if you want to know,
if you want
anytime
notifications every
things out.
time we update stuff, you should press that.
If you haven't had a chance to go and check out our Society videos, please do so. We have also started up recently our own Adventuring 101 series with our fellow player Jessica, and she is providing some information pertaining on how to make a character. So far, including up to dwarves, steadily expanding on past that.
We
in
have a
alphabetical
bunch
order.
of videos planned, so...
And so you'll have a lot of information. If you're new to Pathfinder, that's a great place to start.
Yep.
If you're experienced with Pathfinder, we also have some other videos that are useful, exploring the setting, things along those lines. If you'd like to see some Society stuff, feel free. Spoiler warning, it spoils everything.
Yeah, we are playing the Season 0 Society games, but those came out years ago.
About 250 adventures back. So there's a good buffer there. So if you haven't had a chance to check those out, feel free to go do so.
We are pretty hilarious.
It's generally funny. We have also received some comments recently from our
comments.
viewers. We are always appreciative to ever hear from you guys. So if you feel like commenting, if you want to get yourselves mentioned on the air, things along those lines, feel free to keep commenting, and we will keep answering any of your questions. Usually back in the comments immediately, although for people that don't see those comments, we love to bring attention to them here so that everyone can see them.
Comment on the YouTube videos, comment on the Facebook page. You will get a response.
Comment everywhere.
Comments.
We have nothing but time to answer all of your questions. That's not true. But we will try.
Yes.
So from X Burning X Fight X, which I really love that, by the way, pertaining towards our Adventuring 101. Hey guys, great video, though you didn't put the link mentioned at the end of the video. I guess it's maybe in progress. Keep up the good work. Very astute. It is in progress. So as soon as we're able to, we're going to include a link to provide you the next step to continue going through the videos and hopefully helping any of you make your sorted first characters. So keep an eye out, Burning Fight, and keep up the fight, I guess.
We've also had several people ask about a Patreon account.
DJ, I'm going to say DJ Poge, I apologize if I've mispronounced that, commented that, by Caden, exclamation point, which I really love. Do you guys have a Patreon page or anything? Because I need more of this. First off, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Anything that we are providing to you guys right now, we are going to continue providing to everyone free because we honestly just love this game and love providing this information. So thank you, DJ. Thank you, Burning. Stay tuned for more exciting stuff from Find the Path.
Well, we will see you next time with more book reviews, updates on If We're All Dead and Scarwall Yet.
Yep. Until then, good luck, Pathfinders. So, like, you can basically play Link and have Shadow Link.
Kinda, yeah.
So, which honestly, I hate Shadow Link.
Shadow
But-
Link is amazing. Dark Link is the best.
Yeah, that's...
Don't diss Dark Link.